After China's September 3rd military parade, foreign leaders who posed for photos with Xi Jinping and supported the Chinese Communist Party likely never imagined the rapid and heavy cost of standing alongside the regime. Let's review three significant crises that erupted in the respective countries of three foreign leaders who attended the parade. First, Nepal experienced an abrupt political shift. Former Prime Minister and Communist Party leader K.P. Sharma Ali, who had just attended the parade with his wife, was ousted. On September 9th, Ali announced his resignation, and he has since fled the country. Protesters set his residence on fire, and even the Communist Party headquarters was destroyed by the crowds. Starting September 8th, large-scale protests organized by the Gen Z youth movement spread from the capital, Kathmandu, to several cities, leading to at least 20 deaths and over 100 injuries. So far, Nepal's government has changed hands. The former Chief Justice, Sushila Karki, supported by the protesters, will lead a transitional government. Karki, who became Nepal's first female Chief Justice in 2016, was praised for her zero-tolerance policy on corruption, gaining the support of many protest leaders. In Kathmandu, people are celebrating the victory, and order is slowly being restored in the city. The speed of the revolution in Nepal has deeply frightened the CCP. While the people of Nepal celebrate their victory, the CCP has been busy removing all Nepalese content from TikTok and Douyin platforms, blocking information at every turn. The protests in Nepal were sparked by public discontent over a social media ban. Perhaps former Prime Minister Ali learned from Xi Jinping's method of controlling domestic speech during his visit to China. On September 4th, the Nepalese government began blocking 26 social media platforms, including Facebook. The authorities claimed this was necessary to curb fake news, hate speech, and strengthen security. However, many Nepalese, especially Gen Z, saw this as a direct attempt to implement the CCP's methods of internet censorship and the Great Firewall. On September 8th, many young people who relied on social media for their livelihood staged peaceful protests in Kathmandu, demanding an end to corruption and the lifting of the social media ban. However, the protests soon turned violent, erupting into widespread anger over government corruption and the economic situation. Video showed a protester climbing a flagpole and tearing down the Communist Party's flag, which led to cheers from the crowd. A helicopter hovered low over the capital, and the military was called in to rescue struggling parliamentarians. Another video showed several helicopters evacuating lawmakers to secure locations, with the military controlling the scene on the ground. The parliament building's outer walls were blackened, its glass door shattered, and debris scattered inside. On September 10th, the military declared a curfew. The protest groups, including Gen Z protesters, are now cooperating with the authorities to form a transitional government. The youth-led protesters have overthrown the communist government and taken control of the capital. The videos show young people returning their firearms to the military and taking the initiative to clean up the streets, removing trash and debris. As night fell, citizens gathered around a military vehicle, handing their firearms back to the soldiers. The scene was calm and friendly, with both the citizens and soldiers smiling. Next, in Indonesia, large-scale protests erupted after the Indonesian parliament proposed raising lawmakers' housing allowances, an amount nearly 10 times the country's minimum wage. The protests were fueled by broader issues, including the economic crisis, rising living costs, inflation, a 16% youth unemployment rate, showing wealth inequality, government austerity measures, and corruption. By the end of August and into early September, major protests broke out in Jakarta and spread across the country, leading to violent clashes and casualties. The government canceled the allowance increase and is investigating the police, but the crackdown continues. The number of protesters grew from thousands on August 25th to tens of thousands by the evening of the 27th, surrounding the Parliament building. On August 28th, 21-year-old delivery driver Afan Kurniawan was killed by a police car during the protests, escalating the conflict. According to Deutsche Welle, by September 5th, at least 8 people had died, hundreds were injured, and thousands were arrested. Despite rumors that President Prabowo Subianto would cancel his participation in the military parade, he still traveled to Beijing to take photos with Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. Videos show thousands of protesters storming the Indonesian parliament building in Jakarta. Armored vehicles drove through the streets to disperse the crowds. One armored vehicle hit a motorbike driver who wasn't participating in the protests, and 7 police officers in the car fled the scene, sparking fury from the crowd. Hundreds of motorbike riders protested at the police headquarters. Protesters also set fire to parliament buildings outside the capital and damaged government officials' homes, including the residences of lawmakers. The third country is Serbia. On September 8th, after Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić attended the CCP's September 3rd military parade, mass protests erupted in Belgrade, led primarily by students. They were protesting recent police brutality and government corruption. The Associated Press reported that due to Vučić's increasingly authoritarian actions and democratic backsliding, protesters demanded early parliamentary elections, but they were met with a police crackdown using tear gas. Videos show tens of thousands marching through Belgrade, holding signs and chanting slogans, with some people filming the scene on their phones. Another video captured nighttime clashes between police and protesters. In the video, flames light up the night sky, smoke fills the air, and explosions echo. Protesters gather in front of university buildings, throwing objects and gasoline at riot police, who respond with tear gas and flashbangs to disperse them. Police and citizens push and chase each other, with footage showing riot officers using batons to beat unarmed protesters. The protest started in November 2024 when a newly renovated train station's roof suddenly collapsed, killing 16 people. This sparked widespread anger at government corruption. Many people believe the collapse was due to corruption between the president and business associates, leading to substandard construction. As a result, the public called for early elections to end Vučić's 12 years of violent rule. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić, who had just attended the military parade in Beijing, first took office as president in 2017. He was re-elected in 2022. His term is set to end in 2027. He has been in government since 2012, holding positions such as defense minister, deputy prime minister, and prime minister. He controls key sectors like security, anti-corruption, and intelligence. His highly centralized power has faced criticism from the public. It's clear to observers that the CCP's military parade wasn't simply a celebration of peace, as it claimed, but rather a blatant display of its military might. Independent commentator Cai Shen-kun pointed out that the CCP portrays itself as the backbone of an anti-fascist war, claiming to have led the people to a great victory. However, historical facts show that the main force in the war was the nationalist government led by Chiang Kai-shek. The CCP claiming victory in the war is a distortion of history and an insult to the countless soldiers who sacrificed their lives. The CCP's main focus was on controlling rural areas and building its own forces, while the nationalist army suffered heavy losses on the front line. The CCP strategy, more about expanding its own power than fighting the Japanese, grew its territory and military, with its population expanding from 30 million to 100 million, and its army growing from 300,000 to 1.3 million. Renowned political commentator Professor Zhang Tianliang noted that through the September 3rd military parade, the CCP was not only showcasing its military strength, but also establishing itself as a leader of an anti-American alliance. This was a gathering of anti-American nations, with Xi Jinping as the head of the alliance. But looking at history, it's clear that the CCP's friends often don't end well. One after another, totalitarian regimes have collapsed, from the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe to Gaddafi's Libya and Myanmar's military government. Now, countries like Indonesia, Nepal, and Serbia have joined this list. The so-called comrade and brotherhood relationships are fragile alliances, and what awaits them is a reckoning as part of the larger movement to dismantle the CCP. The CCP was founded on deception and violent suppression of the people. It continually eliminates dissenters from various groups and uses a combination of struggle and deception to force the people into compliance with its oppressive rule. Though terrorism has become a major threat in the civilized world, the CCP's methods of violent terror are being exported to other countries. Wherever a country's leaders follow communism or align with the CCP's evil influence will inevitably shape the future of that country. In every communist or totalitarian state, we see poor farmers struggling under corrupt bureaucracies, workers who suffer from the massive privilege of a parasitic elite, and societies where violence and monopoly rule, stripping away people's property, freedom of speech, and free will. Though these countries are fewer in number now, they still exist. With China's opening up and the influx of massive capital and technology from the West, the CCP used the hard work and intelligence of the Chinese people to attract trillions of dollars. This led to an economic miracle. As China's economy grew stronger, the CCP used the wealth of its people to expand its global influence, bribing smaller communist nations. The ultimate goal is to make these nations economically and diplomatically dependent on China, helping the CCP suppress the Chinese people's rights and beliefs. This is how the CCP seeks to create a community of shared communist destiny and drag the world into mutual destruction. Ironically, Xi Jinping recently ignited global outrage by openly discussing organ transplants and the possibility of living to 150. He was on a hot mic with Putin, confirming once again the CCP's connection to one of the world's most sinister crimes. Nepal's Prime Minister Ali, who underwent an organ transplant for kidney disease, had reportedly traveled abroad for medical treatment. For this, he's widely suspected of being one of the beneficiaries of the CCP's nefarious organ diplomacy. The citizens of countries aligned with China can't help but wonder if they too will become the targets of these dictators' organ harvesting practices. All dictators hope to live forever and retain power to secure their interests. Looking at these three countries and their leaders, who have been met with strong resistance from the people, it's clear that they're all preparing or already implementing the CCP's evil tactics against their own citizens. Economically, they exploit the labor of the people through bureaucratic privileges. Socially, they suppress freedom of speech, block the internet, crack down on dissent, and maintain order through heavy-handed control. Politically, they engage in opaque, authoritarian decision-making, controlling everything behind closed doors. If these trends continue, it's foreseeable that these new members of the Axis of Evil will have their own version of China's 981 project, possibly turning their own citizens into an endless source of organ harvesting. Authoritarian regimes that disregard morality and democratic principles face inherent instability. The CCP has underestimated the influence of justice and the determination of people to defend freedom and fairness. Even in countries aligned with its anti-American agenda, many citizens remain committed to principles of justice, and their resistance has the potential to challenge authoritarian influence. As leaders come under pressure from public opinion and demands for accountability, these nations may alter course. Alliances built on coercion and without shared moral foundations are unlikely to endure, and by aligning with oppressive forces, the CCP and its partners risk eventual decline. Nepal's sudden shift, Indonesia's prime minister stepping down, and the brave people taking to the streets in Serbia have shown the world the power of freedom once again. It reminds us that no totalitarian regime can last forever, and the winds of freedom will ultimately blow through. Dictators may believe they have secured their role, but history often turns in unexpected moments. For the Chinese people, this is both a shock and a beacon of hope.